So one day my family and I were driving to church, and we're on this road where there's a bunch of construction. So there's heavy machinery, big trucks all over the place, lots of noise, traffic, cars honking, frustration, all that stuff. All of a sudden, one of my daughters looks out the window and points and says, "Look, a duck!" And sure enough, there on the side of a road in this little puddle was a duck. Now you would think that with all the chaos taking place around it, the duck would be nervous or a little bit afraid, but no, not at all. That duck was just sitting there in the puddle, relaxing as if it were sitting on the middle of a pond or a lake in the middle of a tranquil forest, completely at ease. I've got to tell you, that was the first time I ever felt jealous of a duck, because that duck was completely at peace. Keep watching so I can tell you how I got over being jealous of a duck. Welcome to Equipped. This is a channel dedicated to adding value to your spiritual growth through Bible study. Today, we're not so much looking at a single Bible passage, rather we're looking at a concept, an idea. The idea we're going to be talking about in this session is the idea of God's peace, the peace that God gives us. Now for this, we're going to look at two scriptures in the Bible, one in the Old Testament, one in the New Testament. First, I want to look at Isaiah chapter 26, verse 3. Look at how that verse reads. It says, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you." Now, I want to point out something interesting about this verse. Look at where it says perfect peace. Now, the Old Testament was originally written in Hebrew, and in the original language, in the Hebrew, it's interesting how it reads here because it's the same word repeated. This is what I mean. Where it says perfect peace, that word for perfect and that word for peace are actually the same word in the original language. The word there that's repeated is the word shalom, the Hebrew word for peace. You've probably heard that word before. Now, what do I mean when I say that this word is repeated? Well, if we were reading this in the original language, it would sound something like this. I'm going to read it in English, of course, but it would be something like this. You will keep in shalom, shalom, etc., the rest of the verse. It would be as if in English we would read this verse saying, you will keep in peace, peace, etc., etc. Now, why does the Hebrew version of this verse have the word shalom, shalom back to back? Is it a typo? Is it a grammatical error? Absolutely not. It turns out that the word shalom has different meanings. It's not just the one meaning that we typically understand. When you and I think of the word peace, or in the Hebrew shalom, here's what we think of. We think of that feeling that we get when we're going through a trial or a tribulation or things are just chaotic in life. It's God's peace that keeps us calm, keeps us tranquil, keeps us from going crazy when everything else around us is going haywire. It's what keeps us in peace. That's the concept that we have of God's peace. But there's another side, another aspect of the word shalom or peace that we rarely hear about, but it's just as important. See, shalom doesn't only mean being at ease or being at peace. It also means this: a sense of feeling completeness or wholeness. Nothing is lacking. Nothing is missing. It's the idea that you have absolutely everything. Everything is whole and I don't know why I'm making this motion here. I feel like I'm doing patty cake. Patty cake, patty cake. It's the idea that everything is there. You have absolutely everything you need. Nothing is missing. No gaps, no holes, nothing is missing. You are complete. You are whole. Nothing is lacking. That's another aspect, another concept of shalom or peace. God's shalom or God's peace, yes, keeps you at ease, but it also makes you complete and whole so that nothing is lacking or missing from your life. Now, I think it's safe to say that this is the concept of peace that Jesus and his disciples and the people of that day had. With that understanding in mind, let's look at something that Jesus said in John chapter 14, verse 27, as he's talking to his disciples. He says the following: "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid." Now, notice what Jesus is telling his disciples here. And keep in mind our dual understanding of the word shalom. I think Jesus is saying you're going to go through a whole bunch of stuff for me, but don't worry, you can be at ease, you can be at peace because I'm giving you my shalom. But not only that, you will also be complete and whole. And because of me, nothing will be missing or lacking from your life. No matter how much is taken away from you for my sake, you have my shalom. Absolutely nothing is missing from your life. And Jesus says something interesting. The peace I give isn't like the kind of peace that the world attempts to give. Essentially, Jesus is saying the kind of peace that the world attempts to give is a counterfeit peace. It's a kind of peace that tells you if you have more money, then you'll feel complete. Not true. It's the kind of peace that tells you if you have a bigger house, then you'll feel whole. It's the kind of peace that tells you if you had a nicer, faster car, then you'll really feel as if you have it all. Not true. What we really need is the kind of peace that only Jesus can give us. So the kind of peace that makes us feel complete and whole, even though we're going through difficult situations. You see, it's the peace of Jesus, that wholeness, that keeps us feeling as if we're whole, even when the world and life's circumstances have taken things away from us. You may feel, I went through a divorce. There's just no way I can be whole again. You may be thinking, I didn't get that job, that promotion I wanted. My career isn't where I thought it should be by this point. Something is missing. But because of the peace that only Jesus can give, all of those things might be missing, but you still know that you are complete, you are whole. You see, God's peace, the peace that Jesus gives, allows you to recognize that all you need in this life is Jesus Christ, and that with him, there really is nothing lacking from your life. So here's the big idea for this teaching. God's peace makes you whole. Jesus gives you everything you need to lead a satisfied and fulfilled, purpose-filled life. So back to that duck. I realized that with Jesus in my life, I can have tranquility and peace because of the peace that he gives me. But not only that, I have absolutely everything I need in Jesus Christ. And because of the peace that he gives me, it makes me whole and complete. Nothing is lacking, nothing is missing. Hey, I hope this added value to your spiritual growth. If it did, would you leave a like, leave a comment, and definitely share. If you haven't had an opportunity, subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you get updated instantly every time I post a new Bible study. Thanks for tuning into this episode on God's peace, God's shalom. You are now equipped. I'll see you next time.